Sisters of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call upon you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, oh, the cauldron cries, sing it unto me. The songs of Mother Goddess and of Father in the tree.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. Um, okay, yep. And we're being broadcast live on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn and TalkStream Live, and on YouTube World. So, hello, YouTube. If you're in on YouTube, make sure you are hitting that like button and subscribe so you will get the alerts. I see we've got MCAT and Cameron. Jake, hello, Jake and Rachel and Jessica, and I'm sure there's going to be other folks popping in. It's going to be a fun night tonight. I've got Judge and I'm going to mess up your name, Cyndal, with from Blooming Lotus Hypnosis tonight, and they are going to be talking about past life regression. So I'm super stoked about that. But regarding the show, this will be broadcast later on the podcast, and that can be found any place you can find podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, that kind of thing. And, no matter how you are hearing me, make sure you do stop in and say hello. And call lines are live tonight, so if you've got a question, keep them short. And I may not actually answer if we're in the middle of a thought, because I don't want to interrupt once we get going, because they've got a lot of great information. So I'm playing with the technology. So I was up until about 1 o'clock this morning playing with the technology because I wanted to make sure I did it right. So, Judge and Cyndal, you should be able to be seen. And wrong button. There we are. There we are.
Hello.
Hi. How are ya?
Thank you so much for having us on today. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for joining me. I'm totally excited because, we were talking about stuff, and past life regression, I think, is the topic that you guys were talking about first when I first met you. And it's something I want to do because I'm really, really curious about, what's happened in my past. And my memory's a little holy anyways, even in this life. So when you guys were excited or willing to come on the show, I was like, woohoo! Find out more information before I fully commit, because it is a little scary to stop and think about, what might have happened back then. So I guess first off, before we get too deep into it, just a little bit about the company and you guys and how you got to this point. Yeah? I didn't mention that to begin with, but yeah, please.
Well, thank you for that great introduction. My name's Judge, and this is Cyndal.
Hello.
And we're co-owners of Blooming Lotus Hypnosis. We have our hypnosis center out of Spokane Valley, in the state of Washington. So what we do is we're licensed by the state of Washington Health Department as hypnotherapists, and we are certified master hypnotists, and we are in good standing with the National Guild of Hypnotists. Yes, so in our practice, we do a lot of things using hypnosis to help people with their problems and to get them fixed up. Hypnosis can be used for any number of things. Weight loss and smoking is what a lot of people are aware of, but I specialize in helping veterans and first responders, PTSD, anxiety, stress, pain management, a variety of things. I do a lot of the hard stuff. And
I work with children. I work with the youth.
I know, sometimes those kiddos are hard. I said sometimes those kiddos are hard. God.
a lot of them are really experiencing a lot of anxiety, and it's absolutely heartbreaking that children as young as 7, 8 years old are coming into my office for severe anxiety. And it's so rewarding to be able to empower them and give them the tools to help them grow, to become, the best versions of themselves at a very young age, and how to teach them how to deal with big emotions, because even adults don't even know how to deal with big emotions. So if I can help them install that at a young age so they can have that for the rest of their life, that's a blessing all in its own.
Yes, because if they have the tools ahead of time, there's less PTSD later, in theory. And,
Exactly.
And it's a lot easier to handle some of the traumas that we encounter as adults, because I know I've got quite a few family members that have served or been in the service, and yeah, it's a real thing. Having to deal with that trauma and that anxiety and the stress of it. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
One of the main things that people have misconceptions about hypnosis is that it is a real science. By the American Medical Association since 1958 has been accepted by it. And there are thousands of case studies and scientific studies that prove hypnosis works because it is result driven. So it is not considered a complementary medicine or alternative kind of mental health kind of thing. It is an actual science, and just like any kind of a course of any other therapy by psychiatrists and therapists.
Yeah, I think it's just important to have those tools and to be able to find someone who can do this. And I think hypnosis is real. I've never been hypnotized. I've never had the guts to try it. So there's...
Well, whenever you feel like it, you just got to come down to our office.
Yep.
It's on my to-do list. It's one of those New Year's resolutions we were kind of talking about earlier. So, yeah.
There you go.
So I've got a question in the chat room. Wants to know if it's something that you can do over the phone or via video for past life regression specifically, or is it best done actually in the room with you?
It really is going to depend upon the individual. A lot of people really like that connection. And so some people do choose to find a hypnotist in their area. Now, we are trained, though, to do remote sessions. I'm actually the first one in Spokane Valley to be certified to do remote sessions. And you can get everything is the exact same. The only thing that's going to be different with remote sessions is that I can't touch you, which is not going to be, it's not, you don't have to have it to go into hypnosis. It's actually been proven that a lot of people can actually go deeper into a state of hypnosis because they're doing it from the comfort of their own home. So to answer your question, yes, it could definitely be done remotely, over the phone as well too, but usually remotely is on the computer through via Zoom or Skype is going to be the best way to go for long distance.
That's mainly because it's important that we're able to view the client when they're in hypnosis, because by us being able to view that person, we're able to tell how deeply a person's in hypnosis or whether or not they're having other difficulties.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so I guess the very first question that I mentioned I wanted to ask is just, what is past life regression? Just kind of an overview for people who've never heard of it, which I don't know how you could not have heard of it, but yeah, I know there's those out there.
Well, it basically begins with understanding that in certain philosophies, people believe in reincarnation. And under that idea is that we live many different lives. And so with past life regression therapy, hypnosis is used with a specific technique to be able to regress a person back so that they can then experience past lives that they may have lived before. Now, it's important to understand that this is not part of a belief system. In fact, regardless of what your religious orientation is or what your spiritual belief system is, it's really not required that you actually have a belief in past lives. This is an experience that anybody can do. Because you can explain this scientifically if that's the path that you want to take. And if you are wanting to look at it from a spiritual point of view, you can embrace it that way. It's entirely up to you, because we do not, in this type of therapy, does anybody actually get implanted with information. Everything comes from the individual. We are only guides. And in that, you get to learn and experience past lives.
That's so
Did
cool.
I miss anything?
No, that's about it.
That's very cool. Now, is there a number of lives that most people have, or does it vary, or how do you know when you've visited all of them, or do
It
you?
really greatly varies. Some people, they like to hang out on the other side and then reincarnate whenever they need to like level up or get some more experience. There are certain individuals that actually come back to reincarnate just to help raise the vibration of the earth, and and they kind of work together. There's like the star seeds, there's the indigos, there's rainbows, and there's crystal children, and they all have their different missions in this lifetime to help raise the vibration. And so for me, for an example, we're kind of opposites. I'm a really, really old soul. I've been around for a long time, but I've only chosen to reincarnate a handful of times, and I've come back now to help the world, which is why I'm a hypnotherapist. Unlike him, if you want to share your reincarnation story.
Well, I would be what they call an indigo child, but that also means that I'm considered to be a very old soul. But I've also had many reincarnations, thousands of reincarnations within life for experience and stuff, and gotten to a specific level and have come back to be able to help others. And that's primarily the reason for it, that kind of information that you find out. Now, as far as people and individuals wanting to know how many lives that they have, this can be found out. There are several different techniques and ways that they can ask questions. And they can ask questions of people on the other side, people maybe that they know, teachers and guides. These can be viewed in many different ways, depending on a person's beliefs and their highest philosophies and ideals, because they can view them as angels, or they can different types of spirits and guides and all this other kinds of things, but they can get answers directly from those kinds of questions, like how many lives have I lived? Now, when you get regressed in past lives, you gain access to what we call the super consciousness. And this is going beyond your regular subconscious. And we get behind the veil or the curtain, which we call the veil of forgetting. This is one of the reasons why people cannot regularly just remember all their past lives and all of these things. And there's good reasons for that. But when they get past that veil of forgetting and they get access to the super consciousness, many times when they get in the right state, they can actually recall how many lives they've had. And that can vary greatly. There is no consistent number.
Okay, that's pretty wild. I would love to fill in some holes. So, when it comes to, the past life regression, just how does it work? Do you just sit down and you guys put someone into a trance or a hypnotic state, and you just talk them through the process, or how's it work?
Well, anybody that's experienced hypnosis before, it's pretty much the same thing as any type of a hypnosis session. But what happens is we're going to use very specific techniques to regress a person back towards birth, and then actually go back into the womb and even back out of this life. There are other methods which can go in a forward direction or a sideways direction, but there are different methods that can put a person into a different life perspective. And there are even techniques which can even allow the client to even choose very specific lives that they want to go to. So those techniques can vary from hypnotist to hypnotist, and the more experienced and the more trained that hypnotists have, they will have a more variety in their bag of tricks, so to speak, to be able to offer a client and how it works. Because they have things like quantum healing, they have things like that are very similar to like maybe shamanic journeys, some meditation techniques, lucid dreaming. And also, even if you look at it from the scientific point of view, from NLP and the neurological programming and all of those things, it all just kind of makes sense.
Oh, wow.
So when you sit down for a hypnosis, yeah, I know. So when you sit down for a hypnosis session and you get regressed, you kind of lose, your conscious mind kind of gets put away. And you go into your subconscious mind. And when you access your super consciousness, you get complete time distortion. So hours can go by in minutes. You can experience entire lifetimes within an hour.
Oh, that's crazy. I'm aging too fast as it is. I don't know, but yeah, that's crazy. But in a way, the when we dream, often if we're having a true REM state, and we're dreaming, those dreams generally don't last as long as it feels like in the dream. They're generally just really quick. Correct? So it's very similar.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The thing about there are certain kinds of dreams that are accessed. And like when a person is experiencing like a lucid dream, they're having an experience called revivification, where they're actually reliving an event. It feels very real, compared to having a dream where there is a very fictional type of situation, or they're just strange outside of reality, which is coming from our subconscious. So there's a definite separation between the way people dream and they experience hypnosis.
Okay. All right. So what should someone expect when they're going into a session? Just kind of I know everybody's a little different, and so not every case is going to be the same. Just kind of a generalization. What should someone expect when they're going through one of your sessions?
They should expect not to expect anything. I say that in earnest because it is impossible to predict what a person is going to experience.
Okay.
We approach it from a point of education. We tell people that if you are going to go through with past life regression, understand that most lives are not that pleasant. And, especially when we're going back further in our own human history, life is kind of crappy. And the experiences are rather usually mundane, because most people are not, somebody famous out of history, or are going to go to some event that was catastrophic in history of mankind or something like that. That is not common. The common thing is it's suffering. They're going to experience death, and sometimes that can even be a very unpleasant death, as most deaths are, and the violence, other things that can happen as an individual. They will relive it. They will feel it. They will feel the emotional impact of these kinds of things. Now, our jobs as hypnotists, when we're doing this kind of work, is we're taking care of the client. So we are there vested as guides and teachers. And when somebody starts to experience something like this, we help guide them to either understand it, or to alleviate that emotion, or move them past it. So that way we can keep on going with it. When we're working as a therapy, then we're more focused towards the goal of the client for the issues, why they wanted to do this as a therapy in the first place. Because maybe say they had a fear of water. So maybe in a past life, maybe they drowned. I mean, these are very simple connections, but a lot of times they're connections that you would never expect.
Okay, that makes sense. Because, the only way to get from one life to the next is to experience death. And, not so much, well, no, even now, death is not exactly, a pleasant thing, but a couple hundred years ago, thousands of years ago, death was often traumatic or, not exactly, falling asleep and dying in your sleep. It was something triggered it, something happened. So I could see how that could be intensely, the emotions and the fear and the feelings could be really intense during something like that.
Yeah, it can be. We also have ways too, but where it's too overwhelming, we can have the client observe from like a bird's point of view, kind of like separate it so they're able to observe and gain information and knowledge that way without actually physically experiencing it. So we do have ways to go more of a gentle approach depending upon the situation. But even with the more traumatic endings in someone's lifetime, after the session, they have a better understanding and knowing. And it even does something even more because these people, our clients, when they come out of hypnosis, they now know and believe that there is something to look forward to. Now, this is not the only time around that we have another opportunity, another chance to do the things that we missed out on, to have all these different experiences and to help resolve our karmic debt from past lives.
Okay, so
It can definitely
go ahead.
that can definitely change a person's spiritual perspective. And that's another thing that somebody has to be aware that can happen. Now, even though people we can be doing regression work, but not necessarily past life work. And we're dealing with a person who maybe doesn't have any belief in that. Maybe their religion or their philosophy absolutely does not. But because we're doing that kind of work, sometimes they just pop into another life. And then when the session's over, they're like, what was that? And we tell them honestly, well, you experienced. Yeah, exactly. What do you think it was? But it then gives a big question mark towards what it is they've been told or the way they've been raised or what it is that their point of view about the way the universe works is now put into a different perspective.
Yeah, I could see how, our belief set now or the way we're raised, especially, like I grew up in a very, very Christian household. In my extended family, there's 3 Lutheran pastors. Most of my family is very, very active in the church. I'm really a black sheep, and I'm very happy being the black sheep here. But I could see how some of those members, if they did a session like this and experienced an entirely different spiritual path, they'd have a hard time reconciling that with their life today. It'd be so alien, they wouldn't understand it. So
it completely goes against the dogma of a monotheistic belief system, because it's like, oh, wait a minute, we have more than one chance to get this right. Oh, okay, well, then that gives me some more options now.
Right?
So yeah.
yeah, there's that. Absolutely. So, those things to not expect, or, what should you not expect other than, leaving those expectations at the door, but what should you really assume that you're not going to encounter or not accomplish in a session?
Don't expect that you're always going to find the answers that you're looking for. Your subconscious mind is going to bring to the surface what you're meant to know at that time. So we have people that will come in and they'll I feel that this person's my soulmate. I need to find out if I know this person from a past life, type of deal. And then we do the past life regression, and they don't get that answer. They get other answers, which is relevant to what's actually going on. So you get what you need out of it.
Or it could even lead to more questions.
That too.
A single session itself is, anybody that says you're going to get everything you need out of one session, I think that they're full of it. That's quite a ridiculous expectation that a lifetime of knowledge and information and issues and a person's development is going to get solved in 1 hour. That's just not a very realistic thing.
No, absolutely not. All
Now,
right.
there's a lot of reasons why they do that.
Right?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we're just about at the bottom of the hour already. You guys, this is fun. I'm liking it. And time is unfortunately just kind of screaming by. So I'm going to stop you there because.
Hypnosis.
Right? Well, it seems like, we get sucked into the path of, ooh, this is fun and interesting, and time just kind of is gone. So if you guys were a boring talk show about, teen angst, it'd probably be totally different. So I'm so glad I don't have any teenagers right now. So real quick, your website, do you want to give that out before we go to break?
Yes. So you can find us at bloominglotushypnosis.com. That's where our website is. And you can email us directly at wellness@bloominglotushypnosis.com.
Excellent. All right.
And you can also find us on Facebook as well too. You can just search for Blooming Lotus Hypnosis on Facebook. Give us a like or follow us to stay tuned.
All right, we'll be right back.
As you will, so motive. Steers of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call upon you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, oh, the cauldron cries, it singeth unto me the songs of Mother Goddess and the Father in the tree.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. And again, we're being broadcast live on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, and in YouTube World. So, whoop, whoop. And do remember, if you want to support the show, you can check out the Patreon. That is www.patreon.com/the spaces between. Or you can check out the Etsy shop. That's www.etsy.com/shop/Monarch Mountain Studio, and Mountain is MTN. And if you guys do want something custom, I can do that. I just need to know what it is and kind of what your hopes are. So, anyways, we are live with Judge and Cyndal. We're talking about past life regression. And so before we get started, the stuff on the wall, guys, that's a map of the U.S., and that is a drinking horn. I have one too, see? And it's real horn even. I'm just not allowed to drink mead because not everybody in my household likes honey, which is their loss, my gain. Because, yeah, and I just make it myself, so I can make it however I want. So, anyways, we were talking about, the things to not expect when you go into a session. And I think one of the biggest points, or the strongest points that you guys made, is don't expect to accomplish everything in one session. It's a process. It doesn't matter if you had one past life or thousands of past lives. You can't just sit down and assume that you're going to cover everything in one hour. It doesn't work. I don't know how you can imagine that would actually work, but that just, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me to think that it would work. So, is there anything else that people should expect or not expect when they go into a session?
Well, one of the things is because it's not predictable. Unless somebody's had like previous experience, so like I had a life specifically to this time frame, and in this life, and I was this person. There's no way for them to expect where they're actually going to end up. So because of that fact, sometimes the superconsciousness will take them to something that's more prevalent than what they are consciously expecting. So that information is not going to be invaluable, but may end up being more valuable because it's something that's more current to their actual needs that they may not consciously be aware of.
Okay, that makes sense. So on that note, how many sessions should have someone assume they need to, or does it just vary with the goals that they're trying to accomplish? Okay.
Entirely. When we set things like that, we would put aside, we would custom make it for every client. And depending on their goals and why they want to use this kind of therapy and what they want to try and accomplish, we'll set a starter set of sessions, 4 sessions, 5 sessions, 10 sessions, based on that kind of a criteria. And then if it requires more, then we talk about more. But if they get what they need within that time, they're not buying our time. What they're buying is a result.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, the result, just like, okay, I cook a lot. I make wine. I make mead. Sometimes you throw all the ingredients together and the magic works and you get something that you can drink when you're making wine. And other times you have to adjust some things and maybe add tequila later. So it's just...
Well, I make a really stellar apple pie. So maybe we'll have to do some barter at some point.
I would love a pint swap. I think that sounds like a great idea. Um,
Yes.
so we're doing a little solstice get together here tomorrow, and one of the things we've talked about doing is just a pint swap because a lot of us can or make stuff, and it's like bring a pint. That sounds like a good idea. So so I guess should the average person really consider past life regression as something they should do, or is it why? Yeah, should everybody do it, or just should some people do it, or what triggers the reason to explore it other than curiosity?
Do you want to take this one?
I would say that, for me personally, and as a hypnotherapist, people will come to me and they'll ask us, for help, and that we should do a past life regression. Usually, what I try to encourage my clients to do is that let's focus on this life first. And then at that point, if we need to explore past lives or go do a different route, we can do that. We have that option. Now, if someone is just curious, like how I was, and I just want to know, then at that point, I think it's definitely great. You can really learn more about yourself. And some examples for why people have come to us to do past life regressions that make sense is, I already kind of mentioned this earlier, when someone is wanting to find out about their soulmate or their twin flame, you just meet this person, I've known you my entire life, but I just met you type of deal. So past life regression would be great to explore that connection.
Okay.
I had an individual, he didn't come to me for that. He's a Vietnam vet, and we were doing some anger work with him, and he had suffered a great deal throughout his life. But because we were doing a great deal, many sessions together, working on a lot of the issues that he was going through, he came up during the point of having a very strong connection with the Native American people. And so he made a lot of progress. So I said, hey, we're kind of ahead in our sessions there. So why don't we do that for you? Because we can go ahead and we can do a past life regression on you and find out where you went. And that's exactly what happened for him. He had quite an experience, and I think he learned what he was looking for with his connection to the Native American people. And so
that's cool.
That's a thing.
I think that's awesome. Gravity. But no, I think that's awesome. Now, well, no, I swear, I tried to go hands-free, so I've got a hands-free headset kind of, but I'm hooked to this, and I've got a big old boxer, and he's under the desk, and he's wanting attention, so he keeps getting, it's just, it's all good.
Yeah. Shake it off.
Shake it off. So why should someone not do a past life regression session or series?
They shouldn't do a past life regression session because, like what Cyndal was just saying earlier, say they have an issue. Maybe it's a phobia. We'll just say they were afraid of the dark. And because they heard from somebody or had I do past life regression therapy to cure me from being afraid of the dark. Now, there are practitioners, and past life regression is all that they do. Mm-hmm. And those individuals will be like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. But us, for example, we won't do that. We're going to go, no, I can fix you being afraid of the dark without you having to go experience a past life. And that's like going to a doctor and saying, hey, doctor, I want you to take my kidney out because I think it's bothering me. Okay, the doctor's going to go, well, what do you know medically about your kidney? it's kind of, you have to take it with that kind of a perspective as far as what you want to do with this kind of an experience.
See, that makes sense because as something you said at the very beginning is, we work on this life first before you start looking at your past lives. So making sure that this life is set and you have a firm grasp on it would make total sense to do that first, that groundwork first.
So like a great example with that would be that one of my clients came to me and she was like, I'm afraid of bridges. I have no clue why I'd be afraid of bridges. I've never been on an accident on a bridge or anything along those lines. So she was just totally convinced it was from a past life. I was like, trust in me and trust in the process, and let's see what we can find in this life first. So what happened is that we were doing age regression, and I popped her back to when she was about 2 or 3 years old, and she was watching the TV, and there was an accident on the TV. A bridge collapsed. And so that is where her phobia of bridges came from. And 2, 3 years old, she consciously wasn't able to remember that, but her subconscious is always, our mind is a beautiful thing. It's always can protect us at all costs. So that was the subconscious way of protecting her from that fear that she developed from a very young age. So that's an example.
Okay. No, that makes total sense. Now, when you do a past life regression, how much of the information and the experience do you retain when you come out of it? Do you retain all of it? Is it really filling in the gaps, or is it, it's just, I don't know. How much do you retain? How much do you remember?
That's going to depend upon the individual, but we want you to remember everything, because if you're forgetting, that means you're not benefiting from it. So we want you to be able to remember. So hypnosis, there's a misconception about hypnosis is that like it's mind control and I'm going to be completely subservient to the hypnotist and whatnot. And it's not like that. So hypnosis is actually a heightened state of focus. So all your senses actually get heightened, including memory as well, which is why we're able to go back to when you're 2 years old and you can remember what happened. And so that's normally one of the very first things that after my clients emerge from hypnosis, I ask them how it was after their first session. They're like, it's not what I was expecting. I'm like, what were you expecting? I remember everything. Great. It's going to work for you.
Now, think of memories like a good analogy would be is to look at a stack of cards. Okay, and some of your oldest memories are on the bottom of this deck. Now, when we're talking about past life stuff, it's actually a separate deck of cards. So when we're doing this, we're actually taking out cards. The whole time. So this is not an unconscious thing. If you fall asleep, you're going to miss the whole thing. So we make sure that you don't fall asleep, and we're constantly checking on the clients what state of somnambulism, which is a level of hypnosis that we're keeping a person in during their experience.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
There's something I was going to mention.
Well, if you remember.
I was going to say something, but I forgot.
I do that all the time. Talking about memory. Yeah, it's a thing.
Oh, I remembered. And we also, we do also have a technique too, that when we are doing this kind of quantum healing, that we have a technique where we help our client be able to remember it. We call it the topic. Oh, okay. Well,
because that's with the life between lives. So that puts the consciousness in a different state.
No, we still do a very similar technique, though. At least I do with the past life regression. But yeah, we have ways, though.
All right. So go ahead.
Yeah, what we were going to say was it's a technique which intentionally focuses on information transferring that information from in between a life
Okay.
and what happens between one life to the next.
Now,
And when you're in between that state, people tend not to remember this one. So there's actually a technique that we use to make sure that we transfer that information into this life of consciousness.
all right, and we're going to talk about that
that's
in a different
how it
show,
works.
guys. The lives between lives, which
Yep. Yeah.
I'm excited about that one too, because I think that'll be super interesting. Because I tend to view my own memory and anymore. Maybe I've been bumped on the head too many times, or have too many kids, or yes, and it's like I feel like I'm a Swiss cheese sitting inside of a colander half the time. So if I could fill in some gaps, that'd be great. Just because, there's, I have 6 calendars to keep me going in the right direction half the time, just because I've got so much going on. And there's the meme that goes around. It's like I've got 42 tabs open and one of them is playing music and I can't tell which one it is. Yeah, that's often that's me. I'll admit it.
I resonate with that.
Yeah.
I resonate with that. No worries.
Yeah. So, I guess the next question that I mentioned that I wanted to talk about is, how do you choose a hypnotist or hypnotherapist, and how do you know, who is right for you, or I mean, I know you guys are licensed, but there's a lot of people out there who say, "Oh yeah, I'm a hypnotist." And it's like saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a surgeon. I played one on TV the other day." So, I just, want to make sure that, how we're finding the right combination or the right, person. Because, you can't play a hypnotist on TV and think you know it all.
True.
Okay. Well, I think it kind of plays towards just like anything else. How do you choose a doctor? How do you choose an auto mechanic? How do you choose a lawyer? You'll want to go ahead and do your research. Do your research on hypnosis first, so you got a good idea of what you're going to be doing, and so you can ask good questions when you're talking to an actual hypnotist. You can ask a hypnotist for their credentials. What is it they do? Do they have a specialty? And then when you're talking to a person, it's just like anything else. Trust your intuition. Trust your gut. You're going to feel like, what, this person, what they say, I feel like I'm being catfished here. You probably are, and if you're talking to somebody who gives you that confidence and you can make that connection with, then that's another sign, So you got credentials, you've done your research, you get a good feeling from an individual, just like when you talk to a doctor. Most of those people, they have terrible bedside manner and they can be very cold. And you're like, do I really want this doctor to be my doctor or this mechanic? What do you know about Subarus? Specifically. But you got to be more, it's buyer beware in anything that you're going to do. And choosing a hypnotist is no different. You have to know what you want to do and what's available in your area, or if you're going to go remote, or what it is you want to work on. And a lot of the times, people, by the time they come to us, they've already tried a ton of things. We're like a lot of people's last resort. They've tried everything. They've gone to different therapists. They've gone through different types of things to try and get whatever their issue is resolved.
Acupuncture, EFT, oils.
Yeah, so they tried all kinds of things. But they're coming to us, they're going, can you help me? Because I've done everything and nothing else has worked. And that's when we start to educate them and make that determination to them to go ahead and do so.
Okay.
And one of the other things is it's not difficult to hypnotize somebody. Anybody can go out online and spend a few $100s and get a certificate that says that they can hypnotize somebody. Hypnotizing somebody isn't the difficult thing. Knowing what to do that's going to help a person and benefit them once they're in that state of hypnosis, that's the most important part about what a hypnotherapist is going to do for you.
Yeah, I totally get it.
And I would also say too, making sure like maybe that making sure that your hypnotist is part of a guild or some type of organization. We're members of the National Guild of Hypnotists, so that means that we have to keep up with a certain amount of hours of education every year. We have to pretty much reapply every year to keep our documentations all up to date. And then also too, it holds us ethically bound to the choices that we make. And so we have this organization that, how would you word that exactly?
Well, just like the American Medical Association for doctors or the Better Business Bureau for businesses, this is who you would report, these kinds of things. And they can pull our certificates and our licenses and all of these kinds of things. So they keep us business, in a business sense, ethically bound.
Yeah.
And so that's a great credential to check on a hypnotist. Who are you associated with? And that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I say often is, practice safe internet. I would assume the same thing kind of applies here. You pay attention to what you're doing, go into the reputable sources, and do your research. I say do your research
Yeah.
all the time. Um, just because I say it's so doesn't mean it's so for everybody. So yeah, practice safe internet. So any
I like it.
So anything else we should know about past life regression? We've got about 5 minutes left.
Maybe we should take some questions in the chat room. Does anyone have any questions?
So we covered the horn. Um, um, yeah, they were
Well,
kind of.
I guess you can't really see the other object that's behind me. So
Oh, you guys got all sorts of stuff back there, huh?
yeah, this is our home office.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So I guess how likely is it for someone to spontaneously have a past life regression without some sort of guidance?
It's only happened to me about 3 times. So it's not very often. And it's kind of surprising for most people because I'm like, okay, first impression, daytime, nighttime, it's dark, and so, or like I feel young, or it's changed, or sometimes their voice will even change as well too.
I think she was going to ask something else.
Oh, okay.
The idea of it is that I think it, of course, depending on the individual. If we're talking about a person who is a spiritual person and they're seeking and searching, they do meditation, they do shamanic journey, or they practice a particular path which does things, and that can happen because you know what, they're actively searching. And depending on what their belief is as far as who they are in a spiritual sense, this also makes a difference. How we spoke about being an indigo or a crystal or rainbow or something like that. Those people individually, specifically, are volunteers that have come into this life. So they are maybe more attuned to being able to have that experience. Now, somebody who is completely mundane, who has absolutely no, they're not seeking, they don't practice anything in particular, nothing out of the norm, they could be an atheist. It does not matter. That is extraordinarily rare for an individual like that to just have an experience out of the blue for nothing. And that will usually come to that person as a dream. And it'll be very difficult for that person to comprehend that as a past life experience, just thinking of it as, wow, that was just a really realistic dream.
Okay.
So
well, that makes sense. All right. So one last question, and does regression help with depression, or is depression something that needs to be addressed in this time frame rather than looking at previous lives?
It's the way that feelings work. Okay, so the way feelings work is they escalate. So if you have a bad feeling that, like say, sadness, and if you don't know how to cope correctly with your own sadness, that continues to escalate. It escalates into frustration. Frustration is our body telling us that whatever we're doing, it isn't working. And that continues to escalate if they do not correct that behavior, because emotions and feelings are telling us that we need to take action. And if it continues to escalate, it develops into natural depression. And that natural depression is our body telling us that we're about to break. That's the red warning light on your car that says, you got to do something now or you are SOL. And that's basically what that is. Now, a chemical imbalance type of depression, that's a completely different thing, because that has to do with your brain emitting chemicals out of your body that it shouldn't be doing.
Okay.
So that's something that's out of somebody else's control.
Alrighty. Well, that is it. We're out of time, so I'm going to put you guys back on hold. Thank you for joining. I'm going to cut away for just real quick, finish up the show, and then I'll come right back to you, okay? So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. There we go. So, yeah, thank you, Cyndal and Judge, for joining us. That was awesome. Lots of good information. And I'm super stoked. And so, merry meet, merry part, merry meet again, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night.
You will so much be this. Sisters of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call